to RetroVerse83 Podcast.
Guys, Retro in the house. Thank you for joining today on the RetroVerse83 Podcast. So I just started doing this podcast. I think I did the first one a few days ago or last week or whatever. It's something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I just think it'd be fun to talk about some retro things. And I know that y'all see the content already of my videos and my shorts and stuff like that on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribe to my channel at RetroVerse83. And it's pretty cool because I have like 114 subscribers, yay, which is pretty cool. So I'm just thankful that people actually watch my stuff. And there's some videos that I have that are like over 1,000 views, which is pretty amazing, because like you never really know like who's out there watching your stuff. So thank you guys, thank y'all for subscribing and watching retro. And it's pretty cool to have the whole nostalgia feeling, and it's just an amazing journey. I want to do more for people and more for the viewers on Retroverse. So I've been wanting to do this podcast. So I want to start doing things where I can start talking about retro nostalgia, video games and movies and VHSs, and do like stories and stuff like that. But I also wanted to keep it where it's like a faith-based type thing, because that's what it's about. It's about faith-based. So this is second episode of podcast RetroVerse83. So I had talked about that I wanted to do the top 10 Super Nintendo games that I like, and that's what this is going to be about. So let's get this on the journey. Let's get it on the journey. So I don't know. I'm going to be reading something here in just a minute. So let's do this, guys. I want to do the whole RetroVerse83 podcast. So enjoy. And I'm back. So yeah, I'm kind of new at all this, so everybody's going to be kind of laughing at me or whatever, but it's okay. I have this really cool book. It's retro gaming. I don't know if y'all ever seen it, but I got it at a half-price bookstore, which is pretty cool, and it's really neat. It just like breaks down a lot of things of retro consoles and video games, and gives you kind of like a backstory of it. And like they're like this one on here on the Atari, they were talking about E.T. the game on the Atari, and I didn't know that it was like a super bad game. It's really crazy. But the topic that we're going to be talking about is Super Nintendo. So let me see if I can find this here real quick. So let me know in the comments below if y'all enjoyed the Super Nintendo. When did y'all get the Super Nintendo? If I can find this. I'm over here lost as can be. I should have looked through this before I even started doing all this, right? But it's okay. This is what's fun about it. So yeah, I found the Nintendo. But yeah, this is pretty neat. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I'm thankful that I've gotten to the place where I'm comfortable enough to do the whole retro podcasting. And it's not about trying to be in competition with anybody else. I'm just doing this for fun, man. This is fun. This is fun to me, and I just love doing it. It's just fun. It's just fun. But yeah, so but the subject is that we're gonna be talking about the top 10 Super Nintendo games, in my opinion, that I like. So let's see here. Super Mario World. I found it, guys. I found it. Bear with me. Alright, so it says the Super Nintendo. With the Famicom dominate in Japan, Nintendo was confident heading into the launch of its 16-bit Super Famicom. And the company's faith in domestic market was rewarded, for the first batch of consoles released in November of 1990 sold out within hours. That's amazing. It was sold out within hours. It was so in demand that Nintendo had to monitor deliveries to avoid theft by local Yakuza gangs. Exported as the Super Nintendo, the SNES, Nintendo's console was released in North America in summer of 1991. and in Europe and Australia in 1992. In the US, it slowly gained around Sega's Genesis, eventually overtaking it on sales, just with 23.3 million compared to 22.4 million by the end of the system's lifetimes. In the UK and other parts of Europe, however, it was Sega that triumphed, which is crazy. That's crazy. Sega and Nintendo traded blows throughout the 16-bit era, both coming out with strong exclusive games and a wealthy high-quality release from developers like Capcom, Street Fighter, Electric Arts, Konami, Turtles in Time, and Square. In the end, the Super Nintendo won in terms of total global sales, with just over 49 million units sold compared to the Mega Drive's 29 to 40 million, depending on what source you look at. And it's the Super Nintendo that arguably is considered that better consoles today by those who didn't take it aside in the 1990s. It was voted the number one game system of all time by readers of Retro Gamer in 2018, and the release of the mini Super Nintendo in 2017. The Super Nintendo Classic Edition shifted as excess of 5 million units in 6 months. Wow. Clearly the love for all things Super Nintendo hasn't faded since its unveiling, which is pretty neat, because I remember getting my Super Nintendo. It wasn't new. We had bought it secondhand from somebody, and I can't remember how old I was, but I was pretty young, and that's the system that I grew up on. I had the game Pit Fighter. Remember that game, Pit Fighter? Horrible game on the Super Nintendo, but back then it was pretty cool. But I remember playing it on the arcade and getting the Super Nintendo, getting Pit Fighter and Super Mario Kart. So the Super Nintendo really has a lot of meaning to me. And I'm thankful that I grew up with a SNES system, because out of all retro consoles and out of all retro games, the Super Nintendo is probably the best Super Nintendo, in my opinion, that any other console has been in my life. You know, I love the Sega Genesis, because the Sega Genesis is more like arcade-based type games that they released. Punisher, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, you have Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, you have, Altered Beast, you have all them cool games that are just amazingly well done. But Super Nintendo, I don't know, there's just something about the Super Nintendo. And I love the regular NES. I remember the NES getting Super Mario 3, the Super Mario Brothers 3. My dad he actually bought that game at TJ Maxx, I believe, a long time ago, and we had one of them big old TVs in the living room, them wooden ones. So it was so huge that one side had a 8-track player in it, and lifted up, and it had a record player in it as well, tape players, and it was crazy. I think the thing weighed like 3,000 pounds or something. But I remember getting the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it had the Power Pad, Duck Hunt, and Super Mario Brothers. So, yeah, but I don't know. There was just something about the Super that really just stuck out to me. Super Mario World, I remember going to Walmart, and it was just, that's before they had the display for the Super Nintendo, the kiosk inside it, and we would be sitting on our knees playing Super Mario World, just waiting at Walmart in the electronics to play Super Mario World. And man, it was pretty crazy. So the Super Nintendo really has a lot of memories to me in my life, and I've had so many games, and it's so hard, with these top 10 games that I have listed here, it's so hard to just pick 10, because there's just absolutely so many Super Nintendo games that are just absolutely wonderful. And I can only do 10, so I hope that I don't know what y'all's 10 is. It may be different than mine, but I'm about to give you the 10 that are pretty that mean a lot to me. So thank y'all for joining on this podcast, and I really enjoy doing all this with you guys. And I guess we'll just get it started. So you're about to find out what my 10 Super Nintendo all-time favorite games are. Alright, guys, well, we're about to get into this. So, again, if you haven't checked this book out, you need to go check it out. I have found it at Half Price Bookstore. This is an actual hardback copy of it, but I've seen paperback, which is pretty cool. So, if you're really looking forward to a just sitting down, laying down, or whatever, reading a retro book, this is it. Gives you some pretty cool details on a lot of things. But alright, guys, let's get this started. RetroVerse83 top 10 Super Nintendo games. So coming at number 10, I'm going to say, in my opinion, Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Street Fighter 2 is a classic Capcom game that came out 90s or around there. I remember going to grocery stores and playing Street Fighter or Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Turbo. They're just really cool games. But Street Fighter 2 Turbo came on the Super Nintendo, and I remember buying it at Blockbuster. My dad buying it at Blockbuster, and that's when they used to sell it in the actual box, the actual Street Fighter box, and they would have Blockbuster sticker on it with many hours on it. And actually, there is a code on Street Fighter 2 Turbo that you can put in it at the Capcom when the Capcom logo comes up, and it'll give you I think hyper speed or whatever, faster than what it is on there already. So number 10 has to be Street Fighter 2 Turbo. Number 9, Jurassic Park 2. I love Jurassic Park, the movies, soundtracks, books, clothing, everything about Jurassic Park. But the first Jurassic Park game on the SNES was really good. It had that kind of over-the-world type gameplay, also with a Doom feel when you would go inside the places like the kitchens or like the raptor cages, the raptor place. It looked more like Doom. So, but Jurassic Park 2 was more like a side scroll game, like Contra. That's what it reminds me of, but the music is amazing. And I remember renting this game, Blockbuster video. I'm going to talk about Blockbuster a lot because that's what I grew up with. That's what basically kind of inspired me to do the channel and my logo. So it's all about the Blockbuster, man. And if it was up to me, if I had money, I would try to open up another one. But Jurassic Park 2, if you haven't tried it, try it out, man. Jurassic Park 2, the chaos continues. Coming in at number 8, I know this is going to sound kind of weird, but it's going to be Super Godzilla. Y'all all know that I'm a Godzilla freak, and I love the movies, the nostalgia feel of Godzilla. I love everything Godzilla. 1985 probably has to be my best movie. I love 98. I know people don't like it, but I love it. It's fun, action-packed. Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin did an awesome job on Godzilla 1998. It's just a fun movie if you haven't seen it, so go check it out, Godzilla 98. But the game, it's a really cool game. The NES Godzilla was pretty sick as well. But Super Godzilla, I remember Sound Warehouse, was it Sound Warehouse? CD Warehouse? Something like that. Sound Warehouse, I remember. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, that's where I got Super Godzilla. But man, remember the gameplay on it's really cool. Yeah, on the top of the screen you see Godzilla walking, so you move and he moves around. At the bottom you see the map where you're going. But when it's time to fight people, it's like Street Fighter kinda, sorta. So like when you hit them, you pick your attack mode and it looks just like the movie. So like it's like you're watching a movie. So Super Godzilla is number 8. So yeah, go check that one out. 7, Batman Returns, Konami. That's a cool game. It's just, I don't know what else to say. I don't think there's any type of other fighting game besides maybe Turtles in Time or Final Fight that can outdo Batman Returns. Batman Returns was just such a awesome beat 'em up game. It's pretty accurate to the movie. Yeah, so Batman Returns, the music in it, they kept it in the soundtrack as well by Danny Elfman. Thank you, Danny Elfman, for the Batman theme. So, what am I? That was number 7, Batman Returns. Okay, so number 6, it's going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. So, they made one on the Sega Genesis. I think it's called Hyper Heist or Stone or something like that. Basically the same game, but different levels, different kind of It's basically the same, but just kind of weird because you know how Sega was. Sega always did their games a little different. But Turtles in Time, that's a super cool game. I loved it. I'd still play that game to this day and won't get tired of it. I have it on the Super Nintendo. I have it on the Nintendo Switch. I have it all. So, yeah, 6 has to be Turtles in Time. Yeah. So, number 5 has to be Donkey Kong Country 2. Man, Donkey Kong Country 2 brings back so many memories. One memory comes to mind. I can't remember what it was. I think it was school, summer or something back in the day, and I remember going to the park. We were about to go to the park, and the whole family was going to go, and we all wanted to go play basketball or something. We were in Garland, Texas, and I was playing Donkey Kong Country 2, and I just couldn't get my mind off of Donkey Kong Country 2 because it just came out. Everybody was excited about it. Donkey Kong Country was pretty big, man, back in the day. But yeah, Donkey Kong Country 2. You're Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong, so you're out trying to find Donkey Kong, rescue him from King K. Rool. So, but it has that more like a pirate vibe, Pirates of the Caribbean type thing. So check it out, man. Donkey Kong Country 2. Number 4, Super Punch Out. Who remembers Mike Tyson's Punch Out? The regular classic Punch Out on the NES. Super Punch Out was absolutely gorgeous game, and to this day I can beat Gabby J within I think 4 seconds, and that's pretty amazing. But Super Punch Out, it is awesome, and I don't know why it's not number 1, but it's number 4. But Super Punch Out, man, you're Little Mac, you're fighting some of the same people from the NES game, Super Macho Man. Who else was in there? Bald Bull, Mr. Sandman. Yeah, so if you haven't checked it out, go check out Super Punch Out. Number 3 has to be Super Mario World. That is the classic game. I don't think nothing can come in comparison to Super Mario World. I think that's where it all began. In my opinion, Super Mario 1, 2, and 3 are awesome. I prefer Super Mario Brothers 2 over 1 and 3. But Super Mario World, that's the one that really took off. With Yoshi, in the introduction of Yoshi, or in the Super Mario World Super Nintendo version, but they did make a Yoshi's game on the Nintendo, kind of like a puzzle type game. But yeah, of course, it's the same thing, the same concept. Princess Peach is captured, you fight Bowser, but the game's awesome. Check it out. Number 2. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. So this game has a lot of fond memories that I remember. I remember buying it at FuncoLand, and that was before when they would get games, they would give you a big old piece of paper, and it had all the games on it that they had there for sale or whatever. And you would just ask them, "Hey, do you have Superman? You have Batman Returns, the Justice League. You have Mortal Kombat?" And they would look. I mean, let me see if I got it. And they had a price on it. That's how you shopped. So I remember buying it, and it came in a little box, and they had a little rubber band wrapped around it, and like an index card on the back, and that was the instructions from FuncoLand. But many hours. I had all kinds of strategy guides for the Link to the Past. Well, I remember going to a church conference with my mom and dad a long time ago in Tennessee, and I took my Super Nintendo with me and the Legend of Zelda and hooked it up in the TV at the motel at the Econo Lodge and played it. And yeah, it. I think The Legend of Zelda is probably the best Zelda game ever created, and they have a similar one on the 3DS. It's the same concept of a game. You're a different Zelda in the same world, same everything as Link to the Past. But yeah, the Link to the Past is number 2 in my opinion, best Zelda game. So check it out. So number 1, finally. Number 1, I know it could be many games, but it's Donkey Kong Country. So when they made Donkey Kong Country, they really went out of their way to make this. It was a totally different kind of game. You are actually Donkey Kong's nephew, I think, who he is, and Cranky Kong is in it, and he's actually Donkey Kong. So King K. Rool's in there, and they stole his herd of bananas, so you're Donkey Kong, but the whole thing is really cool. It looks like more like a claymation type game, 2D thing, but yeah, it's an awesome game. Yeah, so Donkey Kong Country is probably the number 1 game on my Super Nintendo list. So Donkey Kong Country has a lot of memories that I remember. I think we bought it at a Blockbuster, actually. I remember I made a YouTube video of gameplay of me playing Donkey Kong Country, and I remember my dad took me real early one morning on Saturday, and I think we went there Friday night to rent some games, and they had said that they were going to release Donkey Kong Country on Saturday. So we were like, I think the second or third people there waiting in the car to rent Donkey Kong Country. So we go inside Blockbuster Video off of, I think it was in Garland, off of Centerville. I think that's what it was, Centerville or Saturn Road, somewhere around there. And we walk in, and there's like, I think like 20 copies of Donkey Kong Country games, and we actually got one, and it had the instruction manual inside it. So I mean, we played that game. I think we kept it over like 3 or 4 days, and my dad, he had to pay a late fee. It's so cool. Thanks, Dad. I love you. But it's so funny that the memories of the Donkey Kong Country was just amazing, and it's just like the graphics to it back then were like, oh wow. They're like, man, look at all this, and they actually made a VHS to it. I think like the making of it or something. But yeah, you're Donkey Kong. You're the nephew to the original Donkey Kong. Diddy Kong helps you throughout the game. He's your little sidekick partner, like Batman and Robin. Then you have like these little animal guys that help you throughout the game. You have a rhinoceros, you have a swordfish, an ostrich, a frog maybe, I think, or is that 2? I think it's 1, and he's in 2 as well. But yeah, I remember. It's amazing. Kind of makes me want to tear up a little bit, because it's like, wow, you remember all this stuff. But yeah, that's has to be number 1. So that's my top 10 Super Nintendo games. So what are your top 10 Super Nintendo games? Let Retro know, and let me know your top 5. But yeah, that's the top 10 there. And I kind of had to juggle my mind a little bit and just think, because there's so many Super Nintendo games out there, and there's so many good ones. And if it was up to me, I'd do a top 11 or top 12, but I have to put in the Death and Return of Superman in there as well, because that was a pretty classic game. And the Adventures of Batman and Robin was super good. The animated one, that one's like $200 right now, and so I think so is the Death and Return of Superman. But I actually have that game on Super Nintendo. I don't have the Batman one though. The Adventures of Batman and Robin, that one is super good. So if you're ever playing it and you're in the Riddler's level, and at the very end when he asks you a riddle, he's going to ask you something. I can't remember the question that he asks you, but the answer is HB. Just remember that, just for FYI, just for the next time. But yeah, that's my top 10, guys. So thank you for joining in on the podcast of RetroVerse83, and help me grow in subscribers and views. It's not about being popular in all this. I don't need fame. I don't need my name to be out there. I don't need any of this. It's just fun, and that's what it's about. It's all fun. Like I said in the last podcast that I had, look at my microphone. I bought it for $25, and it does just as good as anything else. So I do this in my room. I have a little social media camera here, and there's a camera there, as you can see the reflections on my glasses. I just like to do this. This is just fun to me. It's like, I see so many retro people out there doing videos and podcasts and everything, and it inspires me to do this. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel, my YouTube channel. So keep subscribing to RetroVerse83, and let's keep this going. So New podcasts will be coming, and we'll be talking about more things: retro, nostalgia, videos, movies, Godzilla, Super Nintendo games, Game Gear games, Sega Genesis. I could go on, Laserdisc, everything. So I want y'all guys to stay blessed and stay retro, and thank you for joining in today on today's podcast of RetroVerse83. Stay blessed.